Hi, Dr. Scott Jensen here, and I'm running to be the next governor of Minnesota. And I've got my guest, Matt Birk. He and his wife are the honorary chairman and chairwoman of our campaign. Matt, good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
I always like being with you, Scott. I love your energy and optimism and your spirit.
Well, you know, I think that's why we were born on Earth. Is we're supposed to make the place better.
Yes, amen.
What we're going to do some videos over the next few months, and we just want to talk about issues, everyday issues, in terms of real people perspectives. We're going to span the spectrum, and there might be some that you're uncomfortable with, but you're going to have to get over it. So the first one we're going to start with is just mental health. Today's sort of an exciting day. Senator Dave Sengen was there leading the troops, if you will, down in Rochester, announcing a new mental health center that's going to supply services, outpatient-based, for 10 counties. This is something I was privileged enough to work on when I was in the Senate, but this really matters because nobody denies the importance of mental health. Matt, what are your thoughts on mental health these days? Kids, the whole spectrum.
Well, boy, if you want to talk about kids, I think kids these days are stressed, depressed, exam obsessed, and social media possessed. I mean, the mental health has never been worse for our kids, right? And you say, well, why? Why? Let's start real high level. One, we've pushed God completely out of society and out of schools, or a large portion of people have tried to do that. We have social media. And they've grown up with social media. We live in a culture that promotes consumerism and pleasure and all these things. So, it doesn't take, I don't think you need to be a scientist to put those things together and figure out that that's why our kids are hurting. That, what we're teaching them, whether it's implicitly in schools or what they're gleaning from the culture, is it's a road to nowhere, right? Because ultimately it's about sexualization too. It's just all these things that are, I think most of us would agree are just not good, and we're exposing kids to things at such young ages when they're still forming their view of the world, and kids are confused. They're trying to figure out their place in the world, what they're supposed to do, and they're getting a lot of conflicting messages.
Boy, as a physician, I sure see that. This year, I think in 2020, we had over 90,000 drug overdose deaths. We had increased suicidal ideation. We have more anxiety, depression. There was one slide I remember being in the Senate, and they showed us the pattern of where in Minnesota are kids on the most antipsychotic drugs. Mm-hmm. And the way it correlated with some of the same things you're talking about. And we see the fracture of the family unit. So that isn't helping. Mental health would be an hour-long video. But what we'll do is we'll leave it here. We'll just say mental health is not an emerging crisis. It is a crisis. And as you said, Matt, kids are absolutely inundated with an impossible array of trying to figure out who they are. When we start asking 8- and 9-year-old kids to decide on their gender, we've traveled down a road that just makes no sense.
I would say so, and I would say there's no business of any school or teacher proposing that question to any child.
Yeah.
Right? I kind of I believe that the home is the primary educator of the child. I was fortunate to grow up in a 2-parent home. I know that doesn't exist, in half the homes these days. That doesn't exist. But home is the primary educator, meaning for their education, for their academics, but certainly for their values and their belief system. And what you're seeing in schools now is an agenda being pushed, indoctrination, trying to form kids' belief systems, and not even telling the parents what they're doing. Trying to do this backdoor thing, which to me that is nothing short than evil. We have to call it what it is. I'm not using hyperbole. If you're asking an 8-year-old what gender you identify with and not telling the parents that you're asking that question, that's a serious problem.
I think that's a good ending point for this video. We're going to come back and explore this a little bit more in the next one. But Matt's basic question is, where is the primary responsibility for education to take place? And we could talk about the 3 R's, but we could also talk about so much else that's important for a kid's education. It isn't just the 3 R's, but it sure isn't indoctrination. It's about character and the whole thing. So we'll come back to this in our next video. So this one was an introduction. The next one we're going to talk about where does the primary setting take place for educating kids. Thanks.